So, welcome again to another interesting episode. So, today I welcome a special guest, Sanja Gardašević from Montenegro, from Zuno Games. Sanja, sorry, welcome. And who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I was really excited to be here. So, I'm a marketer that kind of stumbled into tech 10 years ago. And as someone who is also very interested in just human behavior, behavioral economics, I kind of found my way in how people react with technology and how they're engaging with it, and what can we do to make sure that they take the best of what technology has to offer. And through that, I started a startup 2 years ago, which is called Zuno Games. And there we help companies fix maybe one of the most painful parts of corporate life, which is compliance training. As you know, those long, maybe boring policies that you're supposed to read, or the videos you cannot skip, but nobody actually watches them. So Zuno helps with that by transforming training content into bite-sized but interactive mobile education apps. So yeah, that's what we do.
Okay, that sounds already fantastic. There's a lot of things to unpack here, right? So, you talked a little bit about the behavioral economic side or behavioral science. How did you get into that?
I was always a curious child and a curious student. My background is in economics, and I started being interested in the fact that like the typical traditional rules and structures of the economic life are not always being translated into practice. So I stumbled upon a Daniel Kahneman's book. He was one of the Nobel Prize winners in economics. And from there on, I just started exploring a bit more. I started with Coursera. So the reason why I also have a
Mhm.
startup in online learning and training is because I'm a really big learner myself. So I started with Coursera and then ended up in LSE studying the psychology of economic life, which kind of gave everything I listened and talked about before just a little bit of structure. And it was fascinating just going into depth. I think we're learning and growing as technology develops. It's a very dynamic space, and technology, of course, is moving faster than we can develop policy wise, but also from the perspective of the social norms and our own behavior and boundaries we put with it. So it's just an endlessly interesting field for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think you have really hit the jackpot there, and this is definitely a useful skill. So I'm not sure if you would agree, but I would recommend for upcoming marketeers or maybe even seasoned marketeers to study a little bit more about behavioral economics, behavioral science, simply just to provide a better user experience. No? And of course, if it helps to convert prospects into clients, that's also a key benefit.
Exactly, exactly. That's what
Um,
we try to do with our product as well.
yeah, let's talk about the product a little bit. I find this really interesting. So, what's a typical use case? You mentioned something to take the boring aspects out of compliance, but what's a typical use case?
So what we do is we have an AI component, of course, that takes the existing documents, policies, videos, and turns it into game-based learning. Think Duolingo, but for compliance at work. And let's say you're a bank with a new anti-fraud policy. So instead of sending out a PDF or even printing it out in some areas of the world and making sure it gets distributed, we help you have a tool, a mobile app where employees can answer questions, solve challenges, and earn points while actually learning what matters. And for a company where that kind of non-compliance is often a risk from mistakes or governmental fines or even litigation, the fact that you can track how people learn and what is their progress and whether they actually know what they need to do, what they need to know in order to do their job correctly, is it's just it gives you a little peace of mind and confirmation that they have actually gone through it. And we have already worked with banks, energy companies, international organizations. Over 90,000 people have used the apps we have created along the way. Of course, They changed in every iteration. There were many pilots, but we are pretty happy with where we are now. And we have two main product lines. One is the one that I mentioned, which is more into for internal employee training, so ideal for compliance, onboarding, upskilling. Another great example there is that we worked with the Faculty of Economics, University of Montenegro, where we helped turn the whole first year of management studies with the game into something interactive. And we had great feedback on the faculty side that said that actually the learning outcomes improved considerably with students that have used it over the course of the semester. And we had, which is equally important because it comes to that user experience, 90% of students that have used it say that it actually did help them a lot and that they felt more confident and safer into what they were learning as a result. Now, another product line, because of that engagement element, is the brand awareness campaigns, but in game form. So this is for companies that want to educate and engage the public on some topics that are important for them. For example, energy savings or financial literacy. And one use case that we are very proud of is our cooperation with the energy company that launched a public educational game that really wanted to educate people about, what is the sustainable energy habits and what are the sustainable energy sources, and kind of try to educate them a little bit in that way, but to do it in a way that they will find interesting and engaging and not purely, okay, this is the content we are serving you and have to know it. And it worked because it became one of the top 3 apps in the country that month, and we got great feedback for that as well. So yeah, that's what we have been focusing on so far.
Wow, fantastic. So I guess having put together a couple of online courses or online experiences myself, I know that putting the content together is not easy. How does it work in Zuno today? And to what degree are you using already AI capabilities for that?
So we developed one of the first things that we actually, when we started talking with the clients, one of the first kind of obstacle was, okay, but we have to create a lot of content, especially if it's bite size, especially if, our goal is to turn something maybe abstract or a bit boring into something that is engaging. One of the first things was, okay, well, who's going to make this? And that's why we created our own AI tool that helps companies just take what they have, upload it, and then it delivers the content in the format that is fit for the educational app, what we have. So for example, it fits the formats of these different challenges that are within the app. And of course, there has to be some oversight. So a person has to go through and see whether it included everything, whether it needs some revision. We really believe that in order to make it truly personalized and fit for the culture of the company, it should have some oversight, but 80% of the job there is kind of done. And we started first with us because so Zuno Games is it grew out of a software development agency we have called Alicorn. And as we grew, we realized that we were getting new people, and these people are younger and used to learning in a bit different way. And sure, we would have all of these welcome manuals and policies and everything for them, but for them it was still a bit dry sometimes, and we needed to find a way to engage them. So we started with us first, and we created something that helped them get to know the colleagues, get to know the policies, get to know the procedure that would help them really hit the ground running. But we also, through that, tested the whole system and kind of saw how much it helps.
Wow. I like when you say we tested on ourselves first. No? That's exactly my philosophy. Before I do something to clients or I try it out on clients, I first try things myself to see if it works, how it works, and how to tweak it.
Yeah.
No? So that's really fantastic. I mean, taking the boring part out of the learning journey is one thing, no? And adding more fun certainly helps everybody. But I guess it's also about time to productivity, right? If you have new employees and they need to go through an initial learning curve, you as an entrepreneur or company leader, you want to make sure that their time to productivity is also shortened, right?
And
Can
I
you talk
guess
a little bit about that?
yes. So it definitely, we wanted to make sure that it meets them where they are. So we wanted to make sure that the user interface is applicable and understandable by people with different digital literacy levels, so that the way they move through the app is quick and easy and is something that they are already used to doing. So we make sure that people know it, because this is especially important for people who are remote or who are on the field or who are distributed. And we also wanted to make sure that it's multilingual, so that we can make sure that once you have your content in, we can very quickly translate it and distribute it to a very large workforce without you having to go through the customization every time. And having an app like this also helps you with, not everyone at their job has the opportunity or the place to always open up a laptop, always have an hour, 2 hours that you need to go through something. Maybe you're not even having a laptop at your work. Maybe you're in a factory, or maybe you're selling in a store. So having a mobile app where you can go through content in 10, 15 minutes a day, where you can, win some points and badges, where you can compete maybe with your colleagues and be recognized for the learning that you're doing, helps, because that can be waiting in line. Okay, you're waiting in traffic. We have some traffic jams in Montenegrin in the summer, hoping to release that. But until then, you can pull up the app and like play 10 minutes and still learn something. So we're trying to meet people where they are in order to make it just in order to make people embrace it quicker and learn what they need to know faster. So it really works as a training application that kind of set the pace, it follows you, and then you go through everything, even though it's bite size, but it's the key points. So you go through it quickly.
Okay. So you have micro learning, you have a sharing component, and that basically drives the adoption very quickly, no?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
that's I think key to get some virality in the learning experience also. No?
Yeah, we have the leaderboards. Not every client is always interested in the leaderboard, to having people see how they're doing compared to others.
Yes.
Sometimes they told us that they don't want it, but those that do saw a lot of interaction from that.
So you have basically three components, right? You have the content engine, you have
Mhm.
the app that the users are actually engaging with the content, and you have some form of analytics, the leaderboard,
Yes.
etc. What
The
other analytics did you envision there?
So for the analytics, we really try to make sure maybe it's easier on the examples. So with the faculty, that's where we work with them in the development of the analytics, because we wanted to make sure that people from the faculty from different age groups can use it and utilize it in their teaching. So what we did is we make sure that on the area of the topic that they're learning about, on the area of the group, and also on the individual, you can see how someone is doing. So you can see not only how often they're using it, but also you can see how they're progressing. And most importantly, you can flag what are the areas in which you need to address, more attention to, in order to produce better learning outcomes. And that was important for us to create something that is easily accessible and easily readable. Our next thing would be to make sure that we have initial integration with the learning management system that companies already have. So we are part of the ecosystem. So some of the key information they need about, who started the process, who finished it, how well they did, gets sent to the system that the company already has. We are now kind of, that's our forward looking, the next step for us. But if they want detailed analytics, we have it. We developed it in house, which means that we are not sharing data with anyone else. And for companies that value that aspect, we can definitely provide it.
Yeah, I think privacy and compliance, not only training on compliance, but being compliant is very much top of mind for companies, no? Especially as we're going through, let's say, some turbulent times. Some companies are more oriented towards let's say, regional or maybe even local data storage, no?
Yeah.
And compliance on that end. And that's, I think, what you also provide, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Depends what people want. We can always create something locally for them.
Okay. There is. Let's talk about a scenario. I was just thinking that, for
Mhm.
example, in Europe or in the European Union and some member countries, there's this directive for AI ethics, AI
Mhm.
compliance. So when your employees are getting in touch with AI, they have to be trained. No? So
Mhm.
I really don't know what that means, because how do you want to get trained on this beast that is moving every second, right? So
Mhm.
but isn't that a scenario where your solution and your product comes into quite handy?
Definitely, because one of the things we wanted to include in the app is we have this feature. It's called the flip cards, which helps you kind of read a bit more, not more than a few sentences, but read a bit more. And that is also serving for scenarios.
Ah,
Because aside from having little challenges, there are also moments where you do need to really read a little bit more. And I feel like those very practical examples and scenarios is where that learning will happen. But as you said, AI specifically is an area that is growing. It's a beast that is growing very quickly. And we also need to be very quick at tackling how people interact with it. So, yes, the area of AI ethics, the area of everything that people need to know on the grounds that are actually using it is very important, because we have all these, we have these big acronyms like starting from GDPR and now ESG and stuff like that. And we hear a lot of talk about it on boards and reports, official company reports, but it ultimately comes down to whether the people on the floor, on the grounds, actually know what it means and whether they know how to apply it in their everyday work. Because policy is one thing, but if it's not being implemented, or if you don't have guidelines for interacting with AI, then it's a risky situation all around.
yeah. I want to touch just one more topic, which I
Mhm.
found fascinating. A lot of companies like you who have a similar history like you, where there is, for example, a service oriented business, they want to generate a product to generate a different dynamic, a different income stream. And you obviously have pulled this off successfully. Can you share a couple of recommendations for other entrepreneurs how to make this happen?
I think it's we are still thank you, but we are still pulling it off. Of course, it's always a process. We are very successful at the fact that we managed to, after 2 years of kind of building product aside from running the agency, this January we separated it into different, its own legal entity with its own team. And I think that was the key thing. And from that moment on, we saw rapid growth, because having a product within the agency was good for different reasons. One of it is that you can fund yourself, you could bootstrap easily the product development. But the challenge is that people are not fully focused and dedicated. So for us, the moment we see first internally to kind of remove the team, and now even legally and in every other way, that was the real game changer. And I think one of the tips that I would say, the first thing is we really have to find a balance between bootstrapping it as much as you can and really dedicating your team to focus just on this. Because the second challenge is switching from the service based mentality to a product selling, because we
Right.
want to know how services are sold. We have systems in place. We have inbound sales, outbound sales. We have marketing in place. We know how to create case studies for it. But when it comes to software as a service, when it comes to B2B contracts that are product based, everything is kind of new for that. Even though we worked in, of course, we had a lot of experience with B2B sales, we had a lot of experience with we are working with legal teams. But now, when you are selling something that has, long sales cycles, that requires a completely different way of selling and marketing it, a different way of building its brand, just requires a different shift in focus. And I think being honest with yourself and recognizing that just because you were good, because obviously you're good at the service business and in software agency, does not necessarily mean that you're
Right.
going to be good at the product sales. And that once you recognize it, the second thing, build your skills, build the skills for you and for your team. And of course, I'm very lucky that my co-founder has this IT knowledge and is a complete powerhouse when it comes to everything technology, and now he's driving the AI element and development of the product. But I'm also aware that we have to be the faces of the company starting. Like, we
Yeah.
have to lead the sales and lead the process, and then empower the team and motivate the team.
Yes.
But that's the process we are going through, and that proved to be very important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is fascinating, and everybody who's watching this or listen to this, so I think they should take away a couple of key lessons here. No? I think you mentioned something important, and that is carving out dedicated resources. I see that also in a lot of problematic cases, that the idea is there, but then the project is side slipping because the resources are pulled again into service delivery. And worst case, too much time passes, your code becomes obsolete, or some competitor has done already what you wanted to do, so you start over again. So you need to move fast, carve out the dedicated resources, and focus them on product delivery. And then if you go into this product led mindset, you really need to think different. You need to think about product marketing versus service marketing, product sales versus service sales, which is completely different animal. No? So that's really a very interesting project to watch from Montenegro now.
And
That's for
if I can add one more thing that kind of was a bit different for us, I feel like as where our perspective was IT based, right? We were focused on the product. One of the challenges also is not to be too focused on the product, to
sure.
forget to try to get feedback, to try to sell it, to create something from the start. Because as builders, we can be too focused on building sometimes, and it has to follow the sales cycle and process early on.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
mindset shift is key for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really a key project to follow. And for those of you who have not been to Montenegro, I highly, highly, highly recommend going there. Not only because friendly people and beautiful landscape, it's also a vibrant ecosystem. And here we talk about an interesting project. I'm sure there will be more projects coming forward, hopefully also on our podcasts and channels. It's always a special honor actually to talk like talented entrepreneurs like yourself.
Thank you.
So, where can people learn more about yourself or the project? Where should they go?
So the first destination would be our website, zunogames.com. We're in the process of updating it with more use cases and examples. You can also find us on LinkedIn. Just search for Zuno Games. And of course, I'm active on LinkedIn too. Search for Sanja Gardašević and feel free to connect. Let's chat. I'm always open.
Okay, that's fantastic. We will definitely include that in the show notes. Sanja, this has been fantastic. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that the listeners and viewers should know?
Just follow our work. Maybe our next project is one of the things we realized that will be easier for us to sell our product and to expand is to create a sort of a content library. So for all these compliance things that are maybe applicable across the companies, we
Mm,
are starting to work with the experts to really help us create content so the companies can launch off faster. And one of the things that we are looking at right now is on the European scale, where regulation meets human behavior, which is the ESG right now, because the environmental, social governance gets talked around a lot, but whether people actually know what it is, that's another question. And for especially for small and medium enterprises who are now facing the issue of having to think about it and report it because of maybe better financing deals, or maybe because they are being the supplier to a big corporation that has to report on their regulatory requirements. So we are working specifically on creating the Zuno for the ESG sphere to help small and medium enterprises help their workforce learn what ESG is, depending on their role. So if you're, if you're production, if you're on the sales, if you're in procurement, what does that mean for you, and how can you make sure that something that your company, has as a policy is actually being applied? So follow our work, and if you have any feedback or you want to test it out, please let me know.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And thank you very much. I think this is really something to watch. And for everybody who wants to get in touch with you, we'll put the links and interesting information in the show notes. Sanja, this has been great. I want to thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more from your team's successes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Montenegro sometime soon, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes. Okay. Thank you. Good luck. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.